Welcome, one and all, to, kicking off the long Thanksgiving holiday weekend with November's episode of Fictionology, the show where I basically go into very, very detailed discussions about fiction. We've done all sorts of things before. We've done Batman so far, Naruto, Chainsaw Man, and now we're doing um Relentlessly Bullied Hero, which is a comic I've talked about quite a bit here on my channel. Even did a review on it. It's still up. You can go find it. And we're having back the creator who was kind enough to grace my Saturday show, Animated, with a short interview. And then he stuck around and we talked about anime and stuff, news and all of that. But this time, we're giving him the full show because I really liked his book. I hadn't read it back then. I was very interested in it. And I've been looking forward to talking a bit more about it because now I kind of got a grasp of what's going on. So yeah, Hero Darky Dark. I think it's time you introduce yourself.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on the show. Thanks for having me back. I truly appreciate it. It humbles me to be able to talk with people who read my stuff and enjoyed it. Because I won't sound like a people person, but it is good to talk with people.
It certainly is. I mean, just because of like the line of work that I do, like I get the idea of being able to make something and or like put it together or however you want to phrase that and have people appreciate the work you've done. It's a very satisfying feeling. So I'm hoping that you have felt that way about the first book because I don't think I saw anyone really say anything bad about it. From what I saw, a lot of people really liked it.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I was almost baffled with how much some people liked it. Like, of course, I didn't expect to get any giant negative thing about it since I don't think I put anything like offensive or bad up in it that'll make get that kind of reaction. But from the amount of actual genuine praise from it, I'm just like, oh shoot, like this is a lot more than I'm expecting. Like I was kind of expecting oh yeah, it's pretty good. Might buy the next one kind of reaction, but from a lot of what I've gotten, it's just like, oh wow, these people like it. Oh shoot, I'm not even sure how to take this.
Yeah,
Because it was
well,
the first one I actually truly released and published. So I'm expecting some chips and falls here, some criticism, but hey, we take those.
yeah, well, some people just hit it right on the money with their first creation like that. So, what I will say is, I think one of the things that's really going for it is a lot of the people who picked it up are like me, who are really into like manga and anime, and it does a good job of emulating that, right? Like, I remember talking to you the first time, and we talked about how like your inspiration for this was stuff like My Hero Academia and One Punch Man. And I generally, when I hear that, I don't really feel the same sort of like manga inspiration when I actually read the project. Like, oh, this was inspired by such and such anime or such and such manga or whatever, and then it almost is like nothing out of. I feel like no connection to it. This you could genuinely feel like the connection to like Japanese media. Pretty much, it felt very much like manga and anime.
Yeah, it's probably helped that beforehand, as I was working on it, I did a lot of research, not just writing wise, but paneling and that kind of such to get a good grip of what helps make manga. Yeah, I read. Well, not I won't say read. I'm terrible at reading, but I watched a lot of videos discussing how Dragon Ball panelings help make it so attractive and other such stuff. And I kind of must have really helped that as I was growing up, manga more so took over. I was actually reading the regular stuff. Yeah, I still watch regular stuff like Justice League Unlimited and Static Shock and all those stuff. But as I grew up more, I just kind of got more into manga than the other such. At least the stuff I'll go out of my way to look at. So I guess that kind of helped make it so I truly know how to emulate or get that manga feel that most people would like.
Hmm. Yeah. So you actually like went and like looked at like how all the paneling went together. That's actually not something I've ever considered as to how that plays out in a comic. Which hmm,
Yeah,
fun
it's one of those
already
things
learned.
where it's like it's not so openly said, so it can be a little bit easier to miss. So that's one thing I kind of look into, which it was a little bit hard to do since I'm the writer than the actual artist for it. But thankfully my artist is real nice guy, real cooperative. So whenever he sent me the first draft, I was be like, oh hey, you mind? Yeah, let's take out that panel, make this one bigger, maybe move it a little more to the side to try to help it all flow better and still keep that manga feel.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, people being easy to work with is always a great thing. So, one of the questions I did really want to ask because I'm curious about this, out of like the first one, because that's what I've read so far. What was your favorite part to sort of like come up with or create? Like, what was like the one thing in there that you were like really excited about doing?
Mm. I say I have I'd say I have 2. One is basically all the interactions between Zio and Gamora. Like, I'll be honest, it's just having those 2 interact and the fun you have with them that helps really, I guess you could say, keep me motivated to keep on writing. And it's just those little nuggets of both fun, entertainment, and the dynamics that can, keep a guy going another day. And then the second part was, of course, a decent amount of the fights, mostly the climax where, Zeal's on the back burner, but he still gets that, I guess you could say, spark of inspiration to go or give it all he got. As I did write the story as kind of like seeing the underdog of a story. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to, wanting to do great things, but they don't exactly have, I just could say, all the attributes to make it happen easily. So seeing him still try his best regardless of his situation, his powers, even him himself, because it's not like Zeal's a perfect man. Yeah, I kind of made it very obviously clear throughout the issues that he's not flawless. He has his faults. He's an edgelord for sure, but despite how much of a oddball he can be, he still has that heroic heart in him that even if you want to put him in the locker sometimes from how he speaks or how he can act sometimes, you still want to root for him when he truly tries. So that's kind of that second part about it that
Yeah.
I really like to make.
Yeah, as far as like the interactions between Zeal and Gamora, that was one thing that really is sort of like captures like the shonen manga esque sort of character interactions there, like how they may be like a very serious moment, but you have these sort of like bits of levity and stuff mixed in there with like the character interactions providing humor in spite of maybe things not going the greatest way. It's an interesting dynamic. And for me, one of the things like I've done quite a bit on my channel recently is talk specifically about characters and do analysis on stuff like that because those are the things that really matter to me. So hearing that like your like one of your favorite parts is actually the character dynamics kind of explains why um I end up liking it so much because there's probably quite a bit more effort put into that, or quite a bit of effort, I should say, put into that to make it play off well, and it does. So that I've argued before that characters are pretty much like the most important part of a story because even if you have a good story and nobody likes your characters, nobody's going to remember it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so a good story with good characters becomes a great story. So it's nice to see that. As far as like Zeal not being perfect and still you wanting to root for him, I think there's like a couple of things in the actual comic that like really lended to that. First was like the scene where everyone's sort of like gathered around and like clout chasing around that statue, and Zeal decides the thing he's going to do is just like clean up or like take care of like some small things and stuff like that. If I remember, it was he just decided he was going to try and clean up the statue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like one of the things where like, okay, I kind of see where this is going, and that brings to mind like the conversation of like the save the cat stuff that was going on earlier in the month, where people were debating like, does save the cat belong in fiction? Should it get like, is it a trope that should go? Is it important? I like those moments, and I know other people have voiced like how much they actually appreciate those moments too. Personally, I wanted to say that was a like a great little addition. Was that something where like it was like always part of the character, or you just decided, maybe I should put this in here to sort of like show like um who Zeal is, give people a little bit of idea, like, okay, well, he's not like the other heroes. He's actually taking being a good guy seriously.
Yeah, that was always like I won't say big part, but that always was like a trait of his. As you know, of course, excuse me. Part of the thing about Zero is that he takes being a hero very seriously, maybe too seriously sometimes, but still very seriously. So that was like one of those things where I thought, yeah, that would be a good thing to put in. As it does help to show that okay, it's not he doesn't look at it here as just okay, I come in, beat the bad guy, leave. It does show that he does have somewhat of a conscience about the thing going on around him, which kind of helps give the credence of him talk about helping society feel like it has a little bit more weight of position to him, as it's not just him think of one thing and then leaving, but it shows that okay, he does or can have the capacity of think of a issue through more than just one lens of beating someone. And of course, as the series go on, he does find other avenues and other ways to attack something than just strictly head on. And so, that was always like a big part of it. As I feel like, as I always point out, it does help separate them from how some other people might think about. Because, like, how often do we see, a heel actually care about clean up afterwards? Yeah, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so special for this, but it's like, at
It's
least in
something
more
that
modern,
gets ignored more often than not because it's not like the exciting thing to happen, right?
yeah. And especially in more modern times where it seems like, being a superhero feels less like the true heroics of it and just more of, I guess you could say, trending real stuff with it. Well, even if they do help clean up, they do it in like the most pretentious way that you just go like, "Ugh, he's so annoying with this." Like one of those people where they recycle, but they recycle in such the most annoying way. They just want to just be wasteful just to annoy them because they're so annoying with how they recycle.
People who don't just do it, they do it and then either become like spiteful, or they do it because they think it'll give them attention, right? That's the kind of thing we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Hmm. Um, right. Sorry. That trying to retain my train of thought because there's a question that came to mind that I actually wanted to ask. So, as far as the series goes, do you have like an end point you're working to, like something in mind that you ultimately want to do with the series, or is it just a sort of like fly by the seat of your pants thing? Like, are you just going to keep like treating it in a sort of like episodic way where like every issue is going to somewhat be its own thing, although they're ultimately like all tied together in a continuity? Or do you have like a specific end goal you want to reach with the series?
I do say I do have a specific angle I do want to go to. Of course, with how I wrote the first one, of course, beginning can be very, I guess you could say, difficult or hard to do since it's your first impression. It's what a lot of people can either jump on or jump off. So that's why during the first one, I made character interactions a big focal point on it. Because for me, at least, I feel like the three or like four main ways to do a beginning is either you have such an interest in the characters that you're willing to go on, the plot itself is interested in you to catch you, the settings are interesting, or I think I always said them all, but you get the point. Well, like I feel like if it's not one of those, it can be hard to make the beginning really work out. So I do have an end game with it. It's just that how we get there always make multiple different paths because, of course, you can never tell the future, and then a lot of things you gotta mix and match to kind of like adapt to the environment. As yeah, I don't want to just say, "Oh yeah, I have 100 issues in the making for this," and then by the time I get to like 20 or 30, I'm having like a bunch of problems. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do with this. And then I either had to end the series like way too early or like stupidly or
Mhm.
something else. So I like to keep like I call it multiple planned process to where, okay, I have the story and I have like multiple different ways the story will go. It relatively all reach the same endpoint. It just really depends on what's on the middle of it. So I have one where it's long term to where it's like, okay, let's say I can fully commit like, I don't know, 10, 15 years to this. Okay, I can do all this stuff. And then there's another one to where it's like, okay, maybe I can't do all that, but I still have a decent amount of investment that I can do like, I don't know, like 8-ish years or such. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I can cut this out. I don't have to bother with this. Or if I'm not gonna end up doing something, I can just quickly wrap it up here. And then there's a much sort of version to where it's like, okay, maybe I can't stick with this for that long, either because there's not much reach with it, or there's so much issues with getting it produced that I can't do it. And so I'm like, okay, let me basically take off most of that and just stick to like the main quest line. Like,
Hmm.
have you ever heard, One Piece, right?
Yeah, I've gotten through about half of it. I've kept up with the story somewhat through the YouTubes. So
Yeah.
I'm
So
familiar enough with it to talk about it.
okay, good. So you know about stuff like the warlords and then the Yonkos and main
Yes.
villain and such. Yeah. So how I meant is that long term is basically how One Piece is now. Well, okay, yeah, we went through all the warlords, going to the Yonko and so on. The middle term is just like, okay, maybe you can skip like most of the warlords and just deal with the Yonkos. And then the soap version is okay, screw the warlords, screw the Yonkos. Maybe I might just have like one or two for them. And then we're just going straight from here to the main villain and such. And so that's how I'm kind of like having that multi-story plan so that in case anything happens, I feel like I can make the story and still feel complete while feeling like, oh, okay, yeah, I just cut the story off early while leaving like a bunch of mysteries.
So effectively, you're preparing to ride whatever wave comes from this. That's good to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah. Yes, that's the simple way to put what I just said.
No, I think that's a pretty good way of approaching it. Is effectively having an idea, something you want to do with it, but also being willing to adapt to how people respond to it and where you can actually go with it. Personally, I would honestly love to see it go for a long time because I like long stories, but I can't force someone to keep making something that just isn't working for them, right?
Yeah, because like I said, I'm prepared, but it's always like my philosophy. It's like even with other projects when I work on other things, sometimes I'm making was like, okay, the first chapter I'm making it decently like a one shot. Well, hey, yeah, if it goes out, people love it, they really like it. Okay, maybe I can make it a series. But if not, okay, yeah, I can just keep it as a one shot. Sure, there might be something that could be expanded on, but hey, no problem. And at worst, I can just make like what a single sequel to it to address them. But yeah.
Mm, yeah. Um, So I mentioned characters. So there are a couple of that I want to ask about, particularly how you came up for the like idea of like zeal. Just was that just something like that was all of a sudden like, what if I made this character, or was it something that was like the culmination of like several questions you were asking about characters and ultimately came up with the archetype and wanted to write about it?
It was a little bit of both. It was like Zero ended up being of course an amalgamation of a character idea I had for like years to where kind of like Zero. His life kind of sucks at the moment. well, his power isn't as great as it needs to be. Even his body condition isn't the best, but he still pushes on. And then he still, despite his condition, he still does decently well through his still uh, power of will that he forces upon himself, even if it's at the cost of his body and such. So it's kind of like that part mixed with like other heroic aspects. Of course, the other guy, he wasn't an edgelord, he was just depressed. But as I was making the story, I just kind of thought, what if he was just an edgelord? And then I just started cooking up
Depressed,
different
just
ideas
like
on how to make
uh
it.
donned it on. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. And the other guy, he was just like reasonably depressed, like, yeah, that Don Leon Aqua's form mode. But he was more of a see, he is actually just an extra one. But, I like it because while I was thinking about it, I didn't want to take the story a little bit too serious, because then I feel like I might fall into a tunnel to where I become, I guess you could say, a little bit too I'm gonna just say head up my own ass about it. Well, okay, because I'm trying to make the story so serious, so straightforward that I end up making, I don't want to say a bad product, but I make it to where it doesn't feel satisfying or like that impressionable with it. So when I made my edge lord and I pair him up with Gamora, I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so now there's two personalities that can be a highlight to the series as we follow along this plot have gone along. And I thought, hey, yeah, that can help, get people through the plot as we see more and more of it.
Mhm. Yeah, as far as like taking it very seriously, like I can understand where you're coming from. I think I would agree that taking this story too seriously would ultimately hurt it. Part of like the whole fun of it was the fact that it was kind of like shonen and silly a little bit. Again, to reference Dandadan, it's like the same way where like sure you can like look at it objectively and be like, okay, there are some like serious plot happenings here. Like these are moments that are like actual like high stakes sort of things, but I don't know, they're not taken as seriously as they should be, and it kind of makes it all sort of like funny and enjoyable and ultimately like again like shonen or like the old cartoons and stuff where like Batman the animated series is one of my favorite cartoons of all time, the old DCAU stuff. Like they did plenty of goofing around and stuff while still trying to tell a serious story. And that's what this does pretty well. I mean, you still have like that heroic story to it, but at the same time like character dynamics between Zeal and Grimoire just lends to having a goofy smile on your face the whole time you're reading it because there's always some shenanigans at play.
Yeah, I also felt like, as I mentioned before, it does help with getting the personalities of the character out more. Because sometimes when I read some indie products and they're all serious, of course some do it right. Well, yeah, I am attached, but others I feel like because they are so stuck on being, streamlined to the part serious, that it makes it harder to think about the characters outside of just, oh, okay, yeah, he's the serious guy. Oh, his family died. Okay. I mean, not like that won't be big, but it's kind of just like, okay, I feel like there's not enough to make me actually care about the characters outside of him just existing and then him serving a role.
Yeah, like things getting so serious, like things are serious enough. Or well, fiction in general, just I guess maybe doesn't goof off enough at times. Where
Yeah,
like a
like
good little bit of levity can go a long way. Like to reference something incredibly dark and serious like Berserk, it even still had its own moments of like levity and stuff where you would have characters like just interacting in a similar way to like Zeal and Grimoire where they like butt heads and you get to see these like comedy moments, especially with like Puck and Guts being completely opposite. And some series don't need that sort of comedy. But I would argue that a little bit of levity in anything can go a long way, so long as it's well placed and well thought out.
yeah, like we don't need to do like MCU. Everything needs a joke for a sec, but like things that can help define a personality, like Yu Yu Hakusho, Toguro, from what we've seen of him, that guy was insane, from busting down buildings to killing a bunch of people. But to see him take a second to be like, oh, no, no, I don't drink. I just want, some juice, some milk. Yeah, that does help make his personality stick out a little bit more. That such a big, bully guy who has like this almost cold dead demeanor who actually care about not drinking and such.
Mhm. Um, but yeah, to move on from the last question, kind of a similar topic, a similar idea. Where did the idea for Grimoire come from? Because like, was that just like a personal thing? Like I like I like goth bully chicks, so I'm gonna make her the villainess who has this kind. Or was it just something where like you saw like, oh, this could be a really interesting dynamic. Maybe I'll play with this.
It was mostly the first one at first, because I think it probably helped that a lot of the time I was making this, I read a lot of like Uzaku, next door neighbor stuff, Nagatora, that kind of stuff. So I was very into that those kind of mangas till I found that concept entertaining. And then, of course, as I thought about it more, I always find Gamora as like the perfect element to the story, as her personality could help offset the reader from Zeal's personality. Because I think I mentioned before, but I feel like Kamal helps make it stand out. Because if it's just Zeal, of course, knowing Zeal as he is, he doesn't have friends at the moment. He's very closed off and such. So if he just let the story by himself, I don't think that it won't work at all. It'll just be harder because then a lot of like the smaller things and part of his personality in the world around him would be harder to come out as without making it, just be completely uh dialogue or speech bubbles
Hmm.
and such. As because Gamora is there and she's in the position she is, not only does it can bring more levity to the situation, it can help make the reader, realize that okay, yeah, Zero is a bit of an edge lord, so maybe you don't have to take everything he does or says super seriously. As we can see that okay, while he does says a lot of this and he does believe it, he does have his own personality and thoughts outside of it, and it can help make things a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I think that kind of lends to like what I was saying earlier about I don't think this story would work as well if it were serious. Like without Grimyra, I feel like it loses an integral part that really makes it shine to me. That the levity aspect that she brings, because if Zeal's left to his own devices, he's that brooding, gloomy sort of edge lord who is just like, the city is dying, it's decaying. I must be vengeance. I am the knight. I am Batman. Oh wait, wrong character. Sorry.
Yeah.
But with Grimoire there, it's like she's constantly there to call out his antics when he starts to get too into the role he's trying to play, and it sort of it steers it away from that. So like even though his character is to be the gloomy edge lord, you never get to sit too much in there where he's like being the edge lord. And I think that was actually a really good creative choice for the series to like pair him up like that.
Yeah, because as I mentioned before, I was thinking about how I can actually go through the story. And when it was just Zil by himself, it wasn't hard. I just felt like this is gonna be very hard to sell because it's gonna be some guy going up on again, about this is bad, that's bad, and I just felt like that's gonna be hard to sell to people because not like none of us have ever read a story or so that was like that, and we never just went, okay, yeah, sure, it sounds all this, but it just sounds way too. I'm gonna say pedantic. I'm not sure that's the right word for it, but it's like, okay, I don't feel like as much is happening as the guy's claiming to, and so this adding that like different element that can steal things away and then help get a different perspective on things, really help make a lot of things stand out more. And plus the interesting scenario that the hero is just stuck with this villain who follows him around all the time can also help turn eyes towards it.
Mhm. Yeah, honestly, like I didn't expect it at first, but when I read it, like I the series I effectively likened it to the most was basically like this is a little bit of like the My Hero Academia vigilante arc mixed with uh Love After World Domination, which is a little bit different. So this one isn't like a direct copy of it, but it's the closest thing I can find to that, where basically in Love After World Domination, it is like the Red Power Ranger falls in love with the main villainess, and they like start dating behind the scenes, even though she's working for like this evil organization and all that. And like they're actually like committed to their whole relationship, even though like they're on opposite sides of this whole thing. A little bit of like Romeo and Juliet. That sort of dynamic there of like she's just there to pester him and tease him because she thinks it's funny and like cute sometimes to just mess with him, reminded me of that. And then a little bit of like the again I said with the My Hero stuff where like some story elements do sort of line up, and it's not a bad choice because I mean, well, My Hero Academia is freaking popular even after the controversy that was its ending.
Oh, geez,
I,
don't
I won't
remind
even
me.
say
I
it was
was
a.
in the trenches during those times.
I won't even say it's a bad ending. Like I've argued, like people overreacted to it because they didn't get what they wanted out of it. Was effectively my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I say that with like all the I don't want to sound like CNN right now, but misinformation about how it actually ended, it what contributed to it.
mhm.
And there's still
Well,
some people saying things that did not happen in the chapter. And it's just like that they only read the leaks that came out and then never actually look into it.
yeah. I mean, there was also all of the shipping wars that ended with nothing. Every one of them lost, which I'm okay with. They annoy me, especially after all the fandoms I've been in, been through, I should say. Ones I'm like, oh wow, these people are cool. Let me see. Oh no, they are shipping toxic characters. Okay, nope, never mind. Nope. And they're harassing people who draw art that doesn't align with their headcanon. Okay. No. That
Oh
I
yeah,
think
my
that was
big rule when it comes to that stuff is yeah, you can put stocks into it, but put stocks into it very well expecting that you'll get nothing out of it in the end than the fact that you might get something because
yeah,
you never know.
kind of going off on a bunny trail here because I have some personal feelings about that kind of stuff. Anyway, to sort of tie it back, it's one of those things where like again, I always go back to it is much more manga than comic or anything, and I really like that. It's a lot more in my wheelhouse that way.
Yeah,
And
like I'll be honest, it's basically just a manga, but it just made comic book wise since well, one, I'm a filthy westerner, so I've made it so that we can read it the right way than the
how
white
dare you,
collector.
you gaijin?
But yeah, like I thought about it, making it right to left and such, but that was too much. At least when I was supposed to make it, that was too much work for me to like actually care about. So I'm just like, yeah, screw it. I'm not gonna, at least for this one, I'm not gonna try that hard to LARP as a Japanese manga creator. I'm Western English speaking. Well, the best English speak I can do. I might as well just embrace it, and then hey, if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere.
Yeah. Um that sounds about right, honestly. Like there are some elements that are a little bit more like Western, like particularly because fuck the French being a thing. I don't know why that line stuck out to me so much when I read it. I was just like, oh man, the fucking memes on that. That
Yeah.
was That was great.
You know,
But
the funniest part is that was so much such a throwaway line that I literally only came up with at the moment because I was kind of thinking of okay, so why is this Berserker even attacking in the first place and such? And so I just came with, yeah, what if he just wanted to blow up like a bakery? And I'm like, yeah, that can work. What if we want to blow up a French bakery? And then from there, I just went on to, yeah, why don't I just give Berserker like the most wildest, extreme, but random hatred of this French people? And that's how it was born,
make him the average Midwesterner with a lot of explosives. That's what we got.
basically.
No, I think like that in and of itself, kind of helps the story again with the levity aspect of it because the stakes are still there, but not like super duper serious. Like it's a whole goofy situation that's going on. Like the idea that the main villains or the villain for the first book is motivated by his desire or his dislike of the French to do the most inane things. It's just kind of another thing that adds a whole lot of levity to it. And you're not like, oh well, he's holed up in here with a bunch of children held hostage, and you don't make it too terribly dark, which keeps it from being just another like Batman vigilante clone, which is a good thing. As much as I like Batman, I don't think the world needs to constantly copy Batman or make these dark, brooding vigilante types. In this case, just having some fun with it and embracing the silliness really worked out for it.
Yeah. And it also helps. So, yeah, a small theme in the book about, how, Zio, he takes everything serious. Everything matters to him, all that such. And so, taking that to someone, well, you can say that it's basically die hard with how important everything is. Versus someone like Berserker, well, nothing matters. Well, he's literally blowing up stuff all because he doesn't like a French person. And it's funny because even Zio was just like, yeah, apparently a French politician came over here to a bakery like once, and that's why he want to blow up that place. It's just like, that's that level of like petty and I guess you could say nihilism that's like it's a perfect counter to Zeal's, attitude towards things.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I agree. Now that you like point that out, I think that is a great way of framing it, where like Zeal taking everything super seriously and everything else around him not being very serious. Just that again, a great dynamic for the whole project. And hmm, let's see. I wrote a bunch of things down that I was thinking about, and I am blanking on them because that's how my mind works. I come up with things, I write it down, and then it's just like, oh well, you're done with it. You don't need to remember it anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I had to get to the habit of just writing things down.
yeah. Well, yeah. That's I wrote the stuff down. I kind of just in the natural course of the conversation have covered most of the stuff I have written down. So I guess there is like the question of like when like you start writing, is there like something you do to like get yourself into the mood for writing? Like for me, when I start working on something, like if I'm going to sit down and write something, whether it's a script or a chapter or something like that, I usually start by like listening to music or whatever to like psych myself up and then get into it. Is there like something like that that you do for coming up with this stuff? Is it particularly like anti-French propaganda or something like that?
No, I just wall dog it. No, I mean
Oh,
I do sometimes do it. It just kind of depends on the day. Well, like sometimes I'll read like some manga or like some comics to help remind me of like structures and such on how to make it or what I'm putting things in. And that's kind of like a hard part about writing scripts is that it's a lot easier to like write down to do something than knowing okay this got to appear on a page and then yeah, you could just do like a plain 4 or 5 block structure, but then your stuff might like dynamicism. So then you gotta think about, okay, maybe this wants to be slanted, this wants to be arranged this way. So I like to read like some of it so I can get that feeling of what it is. And then from there it'll just be like, you know, I just write, because you can't stop writing until you stop writing. So I just do it one word at a time. And sometimes that results in me only getting a sentence done in a day. And sometimes that can be a couple pages done in a day. It just kind of
Mhm.
depends.
Yeah, I get the feeling, and I'm pretty sure any editor who, or any person who's worked creatively can tell you the exact same thing that I'm going to say here. And that is, if you don't at some point just commit to getting something done, whether you feel inspired to or not, you'll never actually feel that inspiration. Like sometimes, like I have to sit there for an hour or whatever, trying different things over and over again until ultimately something clicks, and all of a sudden I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna write like 20 pages in the next 2 hours, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Cause
yeah,
like,
having the
sometimes, go ahead.
I was gonna say having the work ethic to actually like make your own passion for something is pretty critical when it comes to these sort of creative things.
Yeah. I about to say, like, and sometimes it's less of your work ethics than it is that you just hit upon in the process that this doesn't gel with you as much. And while it doesn't gel with you, you gotta be able to have the discipline to must forward. Well, yeah, it can be slow and such, but hey, if we can must do it, they can get to the better parts. Like even I write a lot of scripts ahead of time because it makes it easier to do a bunch of review. Then after I write it the first time, I can leave it to walk away from it basically for like a month or two. So when I come back, I have fresher eyes, I can improve on it and such. So right now, Relentlessly Bullied Hero number 4 is written basically at the
Ooh,
moment.
wow.
Yeah. So, of course, I was writing towards it. And, of course, at one point, I was very slow with it because I was, not being able to get through a lot of it. So I was only getting like, I won't say like a page, but like 1 or 2 panels done a day in terms of writing. And then it wasn't until like it got to like a certain point. It was more like towards like the midpoint where I was getting to like the stuff I was really, really excited about, that it started going from like a couple of pounds a day to I'm basically got like 15 to 24 pages written down within a day. And so granted I had it was one of those days where I had off, so I had a lot of hours to put in, but regardless. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's as far as well, yeah, you're pretty much saying the same thing I was. That some parts of it just aren't going to be as fun to write as others, and you're just gonna have to commit to making that regular progress over it. But this isn't the end of the stream. I just wanted to point out the fact that I forgot to mention this earlier in the stream, like particularly at the beginning, like I had intended to. So I'm gonna post it here in chat. Um, the link for the book is in the description. So, to anyone who's listening, who happens to listen to this within, I believe it was 14 days. Yeah, 14 days of this live stream. The that's the Kickstarter for it, and I guess that kind of brings up a few things I actually did want to talk about that I kind of forgot about. Like, I love the covers for this second one. Like every one of them is just great in their own way. The one inspired by Nobody, the
Yep.
I don't know if it was A or B, the one with Grimoira holding the heart up.
Oh yeah, that's B.
Yeah, okay. And then like cover A with Zeal chained up upside down. Yeah. When I went and backed it, because I have confidence in the next one. I'm expecting it to be good. I'm expecting to enjoy it. I couldn't decide on which cover I wanted, so I just ended up getting all three of them. I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna splurge on this.
Wow. Yeah, like they were all
So
fun to make. Honestly, the funniest part about B is that technically speaking, that was artwork that was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be made like the first one, but the artist, he ran into some trouble issues, so it got delayed. So by the time he was able to get back to it, the first one already finished and went by. So by the time he got back to it, going, oh hey, yeah, sorry about all that. I can get back to it now. I was like, oh shoot, almost forgot this was a thing. Well, seems like I got something for number two to use.
Honestly, I think I don't. That one might be my favorite of the covers, to be honest. um, but yeah, I was gonna like of all of them, which one do you think you like the most?
Ah, I say I'm stuck between A and C. A because it's Gamora and Zero interacting, and as I mentioned before, that's one of my favorite aspects of White since there's such a fun pair. It's a lot more fun because as a writer, I know where a lot of the dynamics come from. I know a lot of the, I guess to say, situation is between them. So a lot of this becomes, more and more humorous to me. So that's why I like it. Like, yeah, it's not really that much of a spoiler since it's not like it's a huge plot point. But of course, because I know like some smaller stuff like they basically live together because Zio can't be too far away from her. So he's basically forced to live with her. And of course, sees like it was mentioned like the first book in the bonus chapters, but where it was already implied that they live with each other because Zio mentioned how she's such a Slav and such.
Oh yeah,
living
I
with
do
her.
remember reading that he was talking about all her different personalities, and he's like, "Wrath, do not ever meet Wrath."
Yeah. That kind of such. And then, of course, there's the cover C, which is inspired by Nobody, which I like because, of course, it's very epic looking and it helps appeal to, I guess you say, my more masculine appeal and such. As when I make covers, I don't like having a lot of covers because I feel like that can kind of drown out the importance of like each installation and such
Uh-huh.
to where people stop becoming more connected with a couple with a second to the story. So I like to keep it relatively small and I like to get kind of different colors that can appeal to different markets, both to get it to appeal to more people relatively and then to make it feel more worth it. So of course, the first one is kind of like the more general. I felt like both anyone can really enjoy it, especially if they enjoy the hero villain dynamic. Of course, B, I feel like that still do the same, but I feel like with the brighter colors, it can help appeal to more girls. And then C is definitely something for the boys, especially the boys who they may not be too much into the dynamic, but they do like to see the fights, the action, and then seeing Zio with his endless Zio, haha, such. And so that's how I make it. Because
Yeah.
when I went to that con, the funniest thing, if you will go to like the covers for number one, the funniest thing is, of course, cover A did decent, but that was like the generic cover. But yeah, of course, cover B, which was Gamora's cover, was extremely popular with the guys. But what surprised me with
I
that
wonder
cover,
why.
yeah, exactly. But what surprised me with that cover C was surprisingly popular for girls. Like, from all the girls who bought it, they mostly picked cover C, which surprised me. Because that was just like pure Zio. Gamo wasn't even in that one. That was just all Zio. So I was just like, oh, good that I got that out.
Zio got that sex appeal, huh?
Apparently so. Like I'm surprised.
Yeah, cover B will always sell well. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean like hmm, kind of hit a lot of the things that I did have questions about. I guess hmm, where to go with this now? Because I don't know if it would be too like spoiler heavy to talk about a little bit about the next one. If you want to, if you don't want to reveal too much about it or whatever, that's fine. But like, there are some questions I have about it, like this whole idea of I believe it was like a heroes union or something that was mentioned in the description of this next one, like the PYH.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, no, no. I don't mind talking about the next one. Honestly, I always posted. Yeah, even I like my Instagram. I always post like a bunch of the page, not all of the pages, but like a bunch of panels. So I don't mind talking about it since I won't say I gave away like most of the story. I'd say that if you take it in total, only giving away like the first 20-ish pages of it. But of
Mhm.
course, my books are like 52-ish. So even if I gave away like 30, that's only like half the story. But yeah. So I
No,
don't
but
mind talking about it.
yeah, no, you mentioning that like Zeal and Grimoire can't get too far away from each other, otherwise he dies. Now that was something I didn't pick up when I read it the first time. It makes a whole lot more sense now why he's bringing her to this whole like gathering full of heroes who might recognize her, and why he's somewhat like it just made no sense. Like, why would he bring her along? And that part has now clicked with me. That adds a whole other part to the dynamic where like they almost have to be together if he wants to live. So he really is stuck with her, isn't he?
I would say I probably saw worded that better because I won't say that, okay, there's a certain distance he needs to be. It is more of like because of Gomora's personality and such, he can't be away from her for too long while she'll become bored. And if she's bored, she'll start getting a little bit more devious. And in the bonus
So
chapters for this book, we gotta see that she's very irresponsible with his heart. So you can kind of get the reason why he kind of needs to
you mean
always
more
not.
irresponsible than swinging it around on a chain?
Yes, yes, even more. So you can understand why, even if he doesn't want to, he kind of will just still be close to her just in case as he doesn't accidentally do something stupid with it. Because so you can, as I mentioned before, be very get bored easily and stop being stupid. So, and of
No,
course,
I could
Gamora
definitely see
herself.
that with her personality. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Gamora herself. She can be since she's born herself, she can be needy. So you can always tell that even at like small things, he'll probably be bonding him a lot. So he's kind of just like, okay, I'm obviously not gonna get away from her, so I might as well just kind of take the L now and just be around her anyways. At least when I have to, then spend so much time avoiding her when she literally has his heart in his hands. But yeah.
So it's not out of necessity, it's out of a sense of self-preservation. Like, I don't want to have to deal with her when she's bored, so I might as well just deal with the easier version.
Yeah, yeah, basically, it's like okay, I don't. He does mention it in the book itself. It's not too much of a spoiler, so I don't mind saying it. But he does mention that honestly, he would steal his heart back if he can. Is that he doesn't know if one he could even put it back in the way it came out, and two if she didn't like put any spells on it or something too well. Even if it took her away, she won't just teleport it back in her hands and. Of course, if that happens, that can cause a lot more issues. Cause then you know that okay, so you might try to escape from me. You don't want to deal with that.
Okay. Yeah. Um just had a oh yeah, another one of like the bonus things in the back of the book that made me laugh was just the whole thing about Wrath that I mentioned earlier, but the fact that it was over pudding that he took out of the refrigerator. That was again lends to like the whole thing where like she is the unserious character in spite of being the villain, and he is the like super like overly serious character in spite of being the hero. It's just a fun little thing that I thought was um a nice addition to it. So like when it comes to those small details and stuff, are those things that like you put a lot of thought into, like, what can I do to make these sort of things fun, or is it just something like I'm just gonna add this random tidbit in because I think it's funny?
I'd say definitely like something I thought of to well, yeah, to help make it more fun and to add a bit of more personality. Because as I mentioned before, I do think deeply about a lot of these things, the small interactions and such. The only issue is that, since it's indie, so I had to work within relatively a limit to make it work, but then I always have a story to tell, actual plot to tell and such. Oh, whoops. One second. Sorry about that. Anyways, so of course, there's only so much I can put in like the main story to have it actually be coherent and such. So a lot of bonus pages and stuff, I'm just like, okay, these are things that I probably would want to say in the story, just that I don't have a proper place to put them, or I don't want to have to end up taking like a page or two to say it and such. So I'll just put it here to where I can just say it and I want to say be done with it, but yeah, just say it and then okay, we're good. They got the information. We got some more fun facts, and yeah, I don't have to stop the plot midway just to say a joke. Kind of like avoiding the MCU thing to well, okay, because I had to have a joke or put this thing here, I gotta stop the pace. This way, I don't have to stop the pace of the series. I can just be like, okay, yeah, it happens, and then when they read the bonus pages, they'll be like, "Oh, so that's what they mean by this." And
Mhm. Yeah, I think that makes I think that's a good decision to make as far as the smaller things go, because like you said, you could really bog down your story if you constantly had to stop to make all of these random jokes and stuff. Even though they are funny, they do add a lot to like the characters and stuff, just for like the little insights you get into their personality. But trying to throw them all into the main story would ultimately hurt its pacing and make it feel a little too scattered. And the fact that it stays pretty focused to its main goal of like tracking down Berserker in the first book is another thing that I think it's done well. It feels like it stays on track while still being enjoyable and balancing the levity and the seriousness. So all in all, very well crafted. And I wish
yeah,
I wish like there were a couple more of them out so I had more to talk about, but like I don't want to get too terribly heavy into some of the details of the books because I do want people to go check it out for themselves because I think it's worth reading and I think you deserve the actual reward for making this. And I don't want to sit here and ramble about it too much because right now it's one book. In shortly it'll be two books, but for now I don't want to take too much of the fun of people reading this and experiencing it for themselves away from that.
yeah. If you're interested in reading the first one, he already posted the Kickstarter in chat. You can go there if you like physical. You can get the physical, the first one, or if you just do digital, there's the digital option where you can get both books. So yeah, don't be afraid to hop on. There'll be a grand time.
A grand time indeed. And to sort of like um I guess wind it down a bit because I don't know if I have anything else to bring up without going into like super spoilers because this isn't it's not quite the lengthy or long running series that I've normally covered on here. So to sort of like wind it down, as I've said in my reviews and stuff, this is easily my favorite indie comic book that I've read. And I try to recommend it to people who have similar tastes to me, who like manga and anime and stuff, because it emulates a lot of that stuff really well. And if you want to support a guy just like on his own creative endeavor and get something out of it that I think you'll actually enjoy, this is definitely the one to go for because it's very shonen, it's very fun. I know I've harped on some like things shonen and all that, but I don't hate the genre. I actually do really like it because it's what got me into anime in the first place, and a lot of them are still good. But I think honestly, the world could use a little bit more stuff like this, because I don't know, the grim, dark, overly serious sort of stuff gets overplayed. I think a lot of too many people want to like be serious and like tell these like deep, impactful, like nuanced stories, when a lot of people just want to have fun with some things. And that's not to say that you can't have some sort of meaning or interpretation to it, because you can pull some stuff out of Relentlessly Bullied Hero. But I don't think that like having like a moral to the story was ever your point, was it?
I say it does have like a more thing, but I say if I'm going to rank like things you take out of the series is of course number one is fun, number two is having drive, three is of course heroics, and then as you go down and down, there's stuff like morals and such. But the morals are kind of like, at least from now, a little bit more on the back burner because as I mentioned before, Zeal is he's a little bit of an edge lord, so it's not like he has the perfect view of everything in life. Some things he said can be a little bit much. So it's kind of like, okay, you don't have to go that far, but it's not like the main thing to, well, oh, if you disagree with Zero on anything, you're a bad person. It's like, no, no, you can disagree with him. He's not right. If he was right about everything, he might have friends, but you all know how that turns out.
How look at how the whole story treats him like he's not right about everything, right?
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like that's the second issue is that some people feel afraid of not letting their heroes not be right about everything. To well, they feel like if the world isn't moving to the main character's style or feel, that means that automatically the world's completely wrong. To where it's like, no, no, there's no issue with having the main character. While he has a point, he's not completely intact with everything in the world because you know, hey, not everyone, especially if you're younger, have the world figured out, and that's okay. Sometimes you can learn from the world than always shaping it.
Mm. And there's an element of humanity to the idea of them not being entirely right. Like if you try to position your character as entirely, they come off as effectively like the Mary Sue type, where the whole world basically bends over backwards to try and prove them right, to make their point of view the only correct one. It's a good idea to like show the character being wrong, because again, that means that they can grow, and people being able to grow in your story is a good thing because it helps endear people to the character. And the fact that the whole series is like willing to make fun of Zeal for his edginess is one of those things that does help endear it. So, with that said, it's good fun. I recommend it. Hero Darky Dark. What would you like to say in closing to anyone who's listening, particularly about this series?
In particular, I say that, of course, we have a lot of fun here, but I would say don't think that just because it has a lot of joke and stuff with it, that it's never serious or that it's 100% parody. It was like, oh no, no, like there are serious things, there are fights, stakes, story and such, but it's more of a journey of seeing a guy who's, I think a lot of people can relate to not feeling the best or feel like they're in the best position in life, but seeing him, grow, change, and become a better version of himself, but also see that same drive and such still continue to push him forward and to do good in the world, even if the world isn't good for him. As that's partly what the second book is about, as it's him. We do see that some of his attitude towards stuff does get in his own way, but other attitudes of what he does help him even beyond what the world might make him feel. And so it's definitely a journey of seeing how one define heroism and going through life. As of course, it's in the earlier stages, so there's some stuff I can't outright say about what the story is about, but it is definitely a journey seeing a guy's life and all these things that some people. I won't say that Zeal is 100% relatable. He's obviously not, but that's
If you can
the
relate to
other
Zeal
thing that you can
100%,
relate
you
to. You
might
can
need to
feel.
stop being an edgelord, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, yeah. That's all I got.
That's all you got. So, um, I'm gonna say that we've covered it quite a bit, as much as I feel like would be fair to anyone listening. So, if you're here, you found my main channel. Congratulations. This you can also find me on Twitter at Crimson Lawson. And that's mostly just me screaming into the void about anime related topics, occasionally retweeting projects like this because I want more people to see them, and some random shit posting that I tend to do. Otherwise, the only other place you would be able to find me would be on Twitch and on my live channel, which I'm basically just going to turn into like the gaming section of this, because I don't feel like trying to mix two topics on the channel is going to go over well. It might screw the algorithm. So that said, Hero Darky Dark, is there any sort of like socials or anything you want to plug? Obviously, I've put the Kickstarter link to your project in the description of this live stream, as well as in the chat there. Anything else you want to put out there?
Yeah, Heel Darky Dog. That's basically my name across social media, so you can find me on Twitter. Well, I guess that's the most place I spend time with, where you can get my more diverse thoughts. And of course, I'm on Instagram too. If anyone want to go there, Heel Dark Dog, and I got YouTube. So I've been trying to get back into actually post stuff on YouTube, but honestly, the most I post nowadays are just trailers and small stuff for Relentlessly Bullied Hero. But hey, who knows? I might get productive on that again one day.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Hero Darky Dark, for giving me some more of your time to do this whole hour-long chat session, because it's fun. I like talking about this kind of stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to talk to some other creators, or maybe again in the future when more of these books come out, we can discuss it again and kind of look back on this conversation. But for now, I hope everyone listening, going into the holidays, you stay thankful, because that's what all this is about. Just remember, don't take anything in life for granted, because an evil sorceress might end up with your heart at some point. That said, have a good night. Enjoy your holiday and your long weekend, if you're an American anyway. I don't know if anyone outside the States celebrates Thanksgiving.
Definitely not the French, but
My problem is that you're a real asshole. People tell me that a lot. I would say that it's one of my strong points.